How many notes do you guys have? A ton?
Not like a ton, but I've got like a fair amount.
I got mental notes. I was taking it all in. This one's sort of simple to talk about in some ways.
It was like very much like the book.
It's compact and it's very much like that chapter.
Yeah.
With the Will stuff layered in there.
Right.
The whack Boreal stuff.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Cool.
All right. Are we positioned?
Okay. Let me blur my background.
Boom. Hello and welcome to the Amber Spycast, your one-stop shop for all things His Dark Materials. Your Dark Materialists tonight are myself, Alaric, and the esteemed Travis. How are you doing tonight?
I am well. How are you?
I'm quite well. I've enjoyed this 8-episode journey with you guys.
Yes, it has been fun with you all.
Yeah.
Can't say that it's always been fun on HBO, but it has been a lot of fun with
the team. And Joanna, here we are closing out the first series.
Yes, and I am covered in cookie flour Christmas goop and just I was like triple teaming things. I was like watching it and like taking notes and finishing cookies because Christmas is in like a day and a half.
And I'm told by our president that we're allowed to say Christmas again.
Thank goodness.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I have been tired of saying Happy Saturnalia to people. I'm sorry, Yo Saturnalia to people.
Yeah. I'll just say Krampusnacht to people. So here we are. The Betrayal.
Yes.
Same title as the final chapter of the book.
Yeah.
Yep.
And indeed, we get to see the betrayal in all its glory, or lack thereof. Actually, it was maybe a little kind of stunning to me the way they shot it.
A little underwhelming.
Yeah, but also kind of upsetting in a way. The way the demon. Yeah. Okay, we'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. So let's dive in.
Sure. My first note, just to read to you guys, is please God, no demon on demon action.
We talked about that last week.
We did.
A little bit.
Exactly.
A little bit.
Where the I was comfortable with.
Just a caress.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was just a little side rub.
Yeah, it was a little bonk, They were like sharing scents.
That makes it sound more gross, actually.
It does, right?
Don't say sharing scents.
I'm going to share some scents with you.
That's a fair point.
But no, my second note was I love those airships in the beginning of the episode.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really cool shot.
With the Roman numerals on, they had Roman numerals on the side of them. Yeah, that was very magisterium.
I love it.
And the magisterium's armed forces have interesting costumes too. Like they're faceless, goggled, black shrouded figures.
Yeah,
nameless, faceless.
They have no problem looking like the villains of this piece.
Yeah, I wonder, are they good guys?
I don't know.
It's sort of like the Empire, or the First Order. It's like, how do people just not automatically know they're not the good guys?
Yeah, it's like that one meme that we always see. We're the baddies, aren't we? And the guy's wearing his Nazi uniform.
Yeah, exactly. So we open in Azrael's laboratory, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And we get a little bit of story and plot, and this felt very bookish.
It did.
A lot of dialogue was just cribbed right from the book.
Right.
It was, but I think McAvoy came through. His performance was very different than what I took from the book, both the audiobook and from reading it myself. I read Azrael is a lot more aggressive and a lot harder. And I feel like this we got a lot of a I'm doing this because I have to vibe.
You're right. Mm-hmm. Right. He was way more calm. And even in the previous episode, when she comes and he's like, I didn't send for you. It was this pleading. It wasn't angry, which it kind of, read that way in the book to me, where he was angry. So he was calm this whole time now, and not frantic, and not like, distracted and trying to ready things. Like, it was very calm and collected and measured, and I wasn't sure if I liked that feel for it. Anyway, yeah.
Well, there's a moment where he's standing, his back is to Lyra as she approaches, and he's very still, like he's thinking, and he notices that she's there, and he turns around, he takes his gloves off. It's very deliberate. He's appears to be unhappy, and he's struggling maybe with the decision that he's made about what he's going to do. And I'm not sure that the book version of Azrael is struggling nearly as hard with what he's planning on doing.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think the McAvoy version had more layers. It had a lot more layers than we previously gotten, and that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that works for the series. And if you're thinking about, book 3, if it makes it to book 3 with the series, we'll need to understand more about him, and this is laying the framework for what Azrael means to the overall story. How's that Roger and Lyra relationship going?
A lot of hugs.
Lots of hugs.
Lots of hugs.
They built a fort, guys.
They did. I mean, come on. And their little demons were playing with around each other.
Yes.
And then he pans under, and they're just having this little,
they had little sandwiches.
Oh my goodness.
Cut four ways, which is a little weird to me, but is that a British thing? I don't know.
It might be.
I think so. Yeah.
And they're sort of happy. They're happy.
Right.
And then another really enforced hug.
Forced is the key adjective.
Yeah.
I'd sort of jumped the gun because there was a moment where she's in the bath and she's pissed. She's just sitting in the bath, pissed off.
Oh, right.
This was after she tried to give a alethiometer to Azrael. That plays similar to the book as well. He immediately hands it right back. No, zero interest in it. But he had a great line. He says I didn't say I didn't want it. It was something like I brought it all this way and you don't want it. He was like, I didn't say I didn't want it.
Yeah.
But he was giving it back to her. He has no use for it.
Right. I mean, it'd be nice to have.
Yeah, but maybe he thinks he doesn't know how to read it.
Right.
Right.
So what's the point? And he's not going to learn. And if things go as planned, he's not going to have any opportunity to learn it.
He'll be too busy going after the authority. Very,
very busy. Back up to that. I want to talk about the opening credits. And I don't know how I've been seeing a little bit more in them. Have they been changing them, or is it exactly the same?
I feel like there was something that was inserted right before we see Lyra and the knife and all the materials.
It was a tower with angels over it. Did you see
that?
Yes.
That's what it was.
Did you catch that, Joanna?
I didn't.
Is that the first time that was in there?
That's the first time we've seen it.
Okay, there you go.
Because this is the first time they've referred to it.
Yeah, that's referenced in this story, which we'll get to. But that stood out to me in the credits. Oh, wait, there's angels.
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Continuing on.
Yep. But we've skipped over a few things. We've got Mrs. Coulter. When she's having that conversation with Frau, I keep wanting to call him Frau Pavel.
Frau Bucher.
That will always be his name now.
Sorry, I had to get the horse in.
Next season's going to be difficult. But yeah, we got into that whole conversation where that was largely a conversation about sin and the kinds of sin that he may have had.
He calls her out for her sin.
Yeah.
For this child.
Right.
And how she sort of threw away everything she had for lust, essentially, right? Or whatever it is. She dropped everything.
For Azrael.
Yes.
She melted.
But she starts to pick him apart and try to figure out what his sin is. And it's ultimately envy. Is what she believes it is. She dresses him down.
Oh yeah.
He steps to her a little bit, and I think he does have some confidence, and it may be because he wields the might of the magisterium in some way, but he's never been able to hold his own with her in a room one-on-one.
And that, I think, is what he's envious of. He doesn't have that same kind of power, like personal power, that she does or that Osriel has.
She said he doesn't have their step. He doesn't have their like everything.
Their conviction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a pretty good scene. Although again, when it opens with her, she has that simian, like she's like that animalistic. The way she's sitting there, she's digging into that.
She really is. She really is. And I'd like to see maybe some of the other performances other than Lord Boreal do it too, to maybe show us how this works in their world. Mm-hmm. But because really, still as it stands out a little awkwardly to me.
It does. You know, we've talked about this in the book, how she seems to be the only one in this story that has a demon that, you know, a monkey has a high level of intelligence as just a standard garden variety monkey is very smart, smarter than almost anything. All the other demons, you know, dogs have their own smarts, and cats and you know, ermines and all these other things, but the monkey is such a cunning and intelligent animal. It seems, you know, the way they share characteristics, there's something that her demon is on a much higher level intelligence wise, just as the animal it's chosen.
But it doesn't communicate that way
at all.
It communicates like an animal.
It does. Mm-hmm. It's very strange because the other animals, who are, you know, cats and dogs and whatnot, just can't have conversations. But it's basically still just an animal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting how they're playing that. And we see her, I'd say her, other than Pan, you know, the monkey is never hidden. There's rarely a time where you see her and you don't see the monkey in the same shot or in the distance or somewhere. That's not a piece of budget that they're cutting.
Right. Right. That monkey is intended to be there.
Yeah, so she dresses him down, puts him in his place, and they're really mobilizing here for an important step. They're going to go and get Azrael, and I think they sort of see where he is, or they decided they believe where he's going once they get to that facility. But how do they know where he is beforehand? Where his places.
Yorick was guarding him there, so Yorick knew where it was, and if Yorick knows, Mrs. Coulter's going to know. Yofer, excuse me. Yeah. How dare I mix those two up?
Oh my God!
Exactly.
They changed the name in the movie because of people like you.
I'm justifying their sin.
I mean, that's what I would have thought. That it's because Yofer had told her where he was keeping him. Not that he was allowed to do all those experiments and things. He kept that from her because she didn't know that.
Right.
But I think that's probably what it was. There are two things that stuck out to me in the beginning that as we move forward with Mrs. Coulter. One was she had a grip on that monkey's head, like in that opening shot where it's just her before Lyra's real dad comes through the door. And I was like, I couldn't exactly tell what she was doing. Like squeezing the back of its head because she was so frustrated. And then she had a gun. Yeah. And it was like she was contemplating. It was a much more like desperate Mrs. Coulter, and I wasn't really sure I necessarily liked that part. I don't know. I just
was she scratching it and
I couldn't tell if she was hurting it. It wasn't a caress,
but I thought it was making more of a pleasurable sound.
Ew.
Maybe more. Know. I don't know.
It's like hard. A purr kind of thing.
A little bit, yeah. And then the way she looked, she had some amount of pleasure on her face as well. A little bit. Maybe I read it just differently.
Yeah.
My take was that they were each getting some kind of pleasure out of that.
Oh, I felt like she was tense.
Mm.
I thought she was tense, and she was kind of like staring off in the distance, and she was just
mindlessly
hurting him. And then she has this gun. So I mean, that's how I sort of read it.
I don't know. I mean, do you ever like? I don't know. Hopefully you do. I don't know. Like you're sitting there and you kind of like poke your finger, just mindlessly do that. And it hurts a little bit, but you know, all right, I just kind of do it, and then you got.
It's like a sensory, some sort of sensory.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's the same thing that she's doing. But you know, in her case, in their case, it would almost be like a spiritual kind of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And like almost like she's a flagellant, like the monk, like the guy from
the self-flagellation
exactly.
from
the Dan Brown thing.
Yes.
Da Vinci Code.
Da Vinci Code, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So and then we move on to Lord Boreal in the Magisterium.
Mm-hmm.
And he's finally talking to that other alethiometer guy. It's only taken weeks.
And he got his answer, in a very specific answer.
He did.
Yes,
he did.
Like it certainly wasn't in the book, but he gets exactly what he needs out of this. He gets the answer that he needs, and he has this is his mission. Mm-hmm. This will lead us right into the next book.
Yeah, I think having those the alethiometer reading books kind of gives you a bit more focus for your alethiometrical interpretations.
Mm-hmm. So what he said is that his son will lead you to a knife in a tower surrounded by angels.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we all know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the credits.
Right.
Exactly. It wasn't so subtle, was it?
No, it was not. Hey-o.
Yeah,
and thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate it.
Have a good night. Merry Christmas, everybody. Try reveal.
That was a big reveal to me. I was like, oh, okay, that's okay. Yeah. Plot of the next series done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know, I jokingly said it's not so subtle, but it's really not. I mean, their foreshadowing is really just like bonk over your head. Something's coming. Bonk.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They do not fool around with that.
No. It's a short scene, and it's not like they explain 100 things to each other. But you know, the crux of it is that you get the exact information that you need.
Yep.
And it's said out loud. Like, I wonder if there's a subtler way to do that. Using the word subtle again, if you could. He could say, I got your information. I read the alethiometer and I got the answer. And he's like, okay, tell me. And they cut.
Mm-hmm.
They cut away. And then we find out through the narrative what the answer was instead of just someone saying it. Or cut to Will.
Yeah.
Exactly. Push that scene a little bit further into the show. And then, you cut to him. That would be an interesting choice.
So, and you know, again, I think that's kind of shows a lack of confidence that series 2 is coming. You know, I mean, we know it is now, like they filmed series 2, but it feels like when you're writing it, it's not necessarily they're not confident that they're going to get that second season.
Right. Overall, were you higher on this episode than the past two, Travis?
I was. I didn't. I certainly didn't actively dislike it, like I did the last two.
Oh, high praise.
I just wasn't, and you know, we'll get to a couple of reasons why soon. I didn't. I wasn't as engaged as I'd like to have been for the last episode of the season.
Our time in Will's world, I found to be sort of boring in this episode.
Yeah.
He's already put his mom away. The attack has already happened in his house. You know, we sort of know where this is going. You know, he's on the run. We know what the next thing that he's going to do is going to be. Every time we cut to it, I was like, you know, okay, can we get back to the whole point of this episode is what's going to happen in Lyra's world.
Right.
I don't know why we have to keep jumping back. And what happens in Will's world at the very end, they could give us that. but I didn't need all the filler. I didn't need the cop putting out the APB really slowly. That was a really long moment.
That was a long scene.
It's like, I get it. I guess maybe the reveal that he was a cop maybe was of interest.
I guess so. Go ahead, Joanna. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of it, just that he's a cop and it makes him skeezier that he's doing this thing. But I think it's also so there's, people that haven't read the book understand the urgency of Will needing to hide. Mm-hmm. In the book, when we read this part, like he is off, leaves his mom, he's off, and he finds this thing by accident, and he makes this split-second decision because he's on the run, like literally on the run. Yeah. And I think they were trying to help people understand that, he's on the run, he's being hunted down by, police are looking for him, and so he has, that he realizes this is the safest place to hide. But I think what made it not work for me was literally the cuts. Like I wrote on my paper, I was just like, back and forth with Will, back and forth and back and forth. And it made it less impacting. Mm-hmm. I would have rather have had one or two scenes that were longer that had things happening that were more meaningful, so that when he got to that point, it felt much more urgent that he needed to go through.
Right.
But like watching him sit there and rewatch, like on his phone, he was just sitting there in that cafe, like,
kept
looking for burglaries.
Yes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't know.
If I didn't know what he was looking for, because I know from the book that he's worried about being a murderer. Mm-hmm. He's sort of refreshing his newsfeed to find out that a murder has happened, right? And he's nervous about being the cops coming after him
for murder. Yeah,
he's sitting in a very open public place. Having a meal, I guess. Mm-hmm. And even he takes the bus, I just feel like he also, from a performance standpoint, did not seem to be that nervous. Mm-hmm. Even at the very end, he didn't seem that nervous. I just wonder that they really downplayed that, his nerves, the energy there of him trying to sort of take care of himself and hide. Right. Just show me one scene where he's like legit hiding somewhere, like under something or in something.
Right. I mean, because that's the
bits where he's like hiding from the cops. Yeah. Where he saw him coming down the street and he's like, "Oh, I gotta get out of the way." But why? Like, why didn't he say, "Hey guys, some people broke into my house"? Uh-huh. Or I mean, I worried for him, but only because I forgot that he wasn't American. When he was in the restaurant wearing the hoodie, and the cop kept looking at him. Mm-hmm. But then I realized he's British. It's okay. And then that's what happened. He left, and nothing bad happened to him. Right. Like there was no sense of peril at all. No.
Yeah. No. And that's what fuels him. That's what fuels him through the entire book. Even after other things happen. Mm-hmm. I almost spoiled again. Sorry.
Does this Will, the Will as we know him, does he need to go through that portal? Is there enough in what they've built around him that when he's standing there in front of that he feels like he has to go through? That's his only choice.
It's not an escape for him at that point. That's like hey, neat thing.
Mm-hmm. He's sticking his hand through. It's like a Field of Dreams, and James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, and he goes,
Yeah, it was. I don't know. Like, it goes back to that portal thing because he was at the Boreal portal. It's not like it was like the random portal by the park.
I thought it was different.
I thought it was
It was in the same area, but Boreal's is inside of a greenhouse, and I felt like his was not inside of the greenhouse.
I thought his was inside of a greenhouse on his side, but on our side, we never really see where he comes out.
Oh, I guess you're right. So does that mean he's going to appear in the green? See, this is a problem because that means he would appear in the greenhouse. He would not go to Chittigaze.
Yeah.
Bayonne, New Jersey. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Unless it definitely legitimately is a different one. No, you're right, because that's where he had his parking boot.
See?
Because it was that same corner.
Yep, it was that same corner.
And see, that goes back to the problem I have with them having the portal in there at all early. at no point it really hasn't paid off that Boreal needed to be in Will's world.
This is now the third or fourth week we've taled about this, where
they could have just cut back and forth.
Boreal does not need to have crossed over. We did not need to know there was an opening.
Because when I watched the end of this episode and he went through the big fancy portal, all I thought was, you had one of those right by your daughter for her entire life. You go back and forth to Oxford, who knows how often. There's one right there. You didn't have to go through all this. Like, it undercut the importance of this scene entirely to me.
It's also too big.
Yeah.
You know, the one from the book, it's like very small. The cat, the only reason he sees it is because
of the cat.
And he has to kind of wiggle through it. It's small. Isn't it really low to the ground too?
Yeah, like an adult would not have seen that portal.
That's right. It's just out of sight.
Was specific to a kid.
Yeah, I think that the key element from the book is like, if you would never see it just looking at it. Mm-hmm. You have to look at the right angle, at the right time, at the right moment to be able to see it, because it's just a shimmer. Mm-hmm. These are actually openings,
right?
Yeah. Instead of just a shimmery place in the air, it's a shattered piece of the universe.
Yeah,
and he didn't have to bend over; he just walked right through.
It's like the knife slash.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I understand that those appear, and they are places. I mean, the witches can find them; they know where they are. Mm-hmm. They're all over the place, but it's on the ground. It's a person tall.
Yeah.
It's like 1 metric person. It seemed so obvious. And that park or whatever, I understand there's like a fence around it, but how many other people have gone through and poked around in there?
The gardener, clearly at some point somebody has done some work there. Yeah.
Yeah, or even like someone looking for a place to sleep.
Yeah.
A homeless person maybe.
Yeah.
So now this to me becomes the number one biggest problem, is that it appears to be he went through the same one that Boreal's been going through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which means he's going to show up in the greenhouse in Lyra's world, not Chitagaze.
Right.
Which is a real problem. And if he shows up at Chitagaze, it's going to be a real problem. Mm-hmm. So then they have to establish that it's a different portal. But they should have done that now. Mm-hmm. They're not going to go back and show us a different portal. He's already gone through it.
Right.
Yeah, and because they've already filmed the second season, so it's not like they're going to fix it.
Now I have to go back and watch the end again to see if it maybe is a different one. But
I'm hoping
that appears to be the same park.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. It really does.
I would have liked that. I would have liked that at night too. It was the middle of the day.
For a portal that big, yeah. Because I thought it was in the middle of the day when he did it in the book.
Was an evening? I felt like maybe he waited to go through.
I thought it was maybe because I think
dusk.
It was like right, because then the cars that were coming couldn't quite see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
He waited. He was watching it for a while because he was kind of confused by it. He has no confusion about it.
Mm-mm.
Other than his explorer sensibilities, because his father is an adventurer. But I don't know. That was well established enough.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so we digressed a little bit, but a valuable digression. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's your next note?
So my next, we've got Lyra and Roger with their little fort, and Roger being the hugger.
Yeah, and the sandwiches.
So with the sandwiches, and then Lord Osriel when he snuck into the room and got Lyra. A little creeped out. I'm gonna say a little creeped out.
My wife was like, "Ooh, creepy." Yeah. I thought he was just gonna drag Roger out.
So did I.
So did I.
This is gonna be hardcore.
Yeah.
But no, and then he and Lyra had their nice little heart to heart.
This is the conversation from the book I really liked, and it was not verbatim, but it was very well adapted to the screen here. Yeah. They even had the passages from the Bible, like all that stuff. I thought was really strong, and McAvoy really crushed it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
He's trying to convince her here. He's really trying to convince her that it's like, does he want her approval?
I kind of felt like he did.
He wants her to come with him.
Right. Yeah. Well, earlier he when he had that conversation with her, and he created that distance between the two, when he said that this conversation is bordering on sentimentality, and then like kind of just locked her off. My note there was that I felt that he was doing it because he knew he was going to have to do some stuff, and he did, and she'd already said that she would have been proud of him, and he didn't want her to be proud of him.
Why would you be proud? He said. Why would you be proud of me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have this conversation, and it kind of undercut what he did in the first one. So I'm not entirely sure what the purpose was there.
Did he think more about it and sort of have a change of heart? Is part of it that he needed to get her away from Roger and like have her fall asleep somewhere else was part of it? Was there more of a motive to him connecting to her? But there's moments where he's like, seemingly wanting her to come with him, and she says, "No, my task is done.
I've done my piece."
Yeah,
which wasn't a very Lyra thing to say. I don't feel like.
No.
Yeah.
Because if Lord Asriel is asking Lyra to go, the Lyra we know at that point is going to go.
She's going to go. She doesn't know yet what he's going to do.
I mean, I feel like the Lyra in the book would at that point be ready to go, but I'm not sure the Lyra on the screen is it like they're in very different places, even though, like, and I like what Daphne Keane is doing with her Lyra. I really do. But the Lyra in the book would have absolutely. Yeah. Because in the book she's like, well, how would you know this thing would about cutting a child and that it would do this thing, and he's like, it'll open a bridge to a world, and then she just gets wrapped up into this idea and totally again totally forgets about Roger. So like I feel like in the book, that book Lyra, but this Lyra is very different because she didn't have that come to Jesus moment either, talking to him where she's like, I mean, I guess she kind of did when she was like, somebody who loves me gave me my name. Yeah. Which we had said in our podcast weeks and weeks ago, that she realizes others love her, and what he's, promising or showing, just like Mrs. Coulter, is not true. So I don't know. I mean, it felt to me like, it was disappointing just because it felt like it wasn't what Lyra would have done, but I felt like it is what this Lyra would have done. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Their discussion about sin and the Bible and the quotes in the Bible. I liked that they said the last few words together. Like Lyra studied all this stuff, whether she paid attention or not, and everything. She knows. This has been drilled into her. And we're finding out in the show about a lot of the stuff that we know about from the book, but it felt conversational. It didn't feel expository. I don't know. Did you feel like it was a aye Captain moment?
I did not have a Captain Exposition feeling at all. I thought that this was really well done.
Yeah, this was good. Like, it felt somewhat natural.
Yeah. And because I felt some character development as well, or at least some character reveals, because I really felt like Lord Asriel cared what Lyra thought about him by the end of that conversation, and he was proud of her knowledge. He was proud that she'd taken her studies at least sort of seriously, and she knew these types of things. So yeah, by the end of the conversation, I saw that he had some respect for Lyra that he may not have had even when she showed up.
Yeah. And I think too, what I really liked about that part was there was like no hold barred. Like, it wasn't like in the movie where they kind of like skirted around the idea of like the church, and like they were very, I don't know if you remember in the movie, I mean, not in the book, but in the movie, they were like very kind of tiptoeing around that idea. And here it was just like, I felt like it was he was very aggressively clear, and I was really glad that they did it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's talking about the authority, and they're quoting Bible verses, and he's saying, they say it's, they're saying this is this evil, bad thing. And I feel like they've set that up. I'm just glad that they took a stand on it. That was like a very clear stance, because they could have maybe been a little bit more revealing about it, but still could have kind of tiptoed if they wanted to. But I don't feel like they did. Did you feel like they did? I felt like they were like, bam.
Oh no, I felt like they were definitely taking on the authority, straight on, and the magisterium. And I think it was very clear what the authority is supposed to represent here.
Right.
There was no, what is the authority? We know the authority is God.
Yeah.
End of.
Yep.
So
it was if every one of these moments in his lab and beyond, all of it was excised from the movie. Every single piece of it. There's not a shred of it in the movie.
Yeah.
Just picture them riding off in the balloon. Like, how different is this than that? That's the end of the, like, what's next, Roger? It's like all kind of light and happy, and they're snuggled up with Urich, and they're in the balloon. Like, how could they even have done the second movie the way they ended that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just the first 10 minutes would have been nothing but like tears.
Oh my
nothing
God.
but tears. Tears and creepy animal interaction.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was pretty effective. The with Thorold has a little bit of a role to play here. We see him a little bit. Do we know? Have we seen his demon yet in the show?
I don't recall seeing it.
I'm assuming it's a dog, but you would think a dog would be a bit more visible.
Yeah, maybe it's a very small dog. It's a teacup poodle, and it's like it's in his front pocket.
It's in his pocket. Yep.
It's wearing the littlest sweater you've ever seen.
With the turtleneck.
Because it's cold up there. It's cold in the north, and the thing is no matter what it's wearing is like shivering all the time. So if you look at his pocket,
chihuahuas.
all they had to do was show like a shivering pocket. They could have saved a lot of money, and we would have known. It's like, that's definitely a teacup chihuahua in there. Thorold.
Oh, this is my demon Daisy.
The little bit of hair, there's like a little bow in it. It is a girl.
My aunt had that dog, that exact dog for the longest time. And she brought it into the church for my wedding. It was the absolute best. She looked like a character from a Disney movie.
So during this, if there's one element of this conversation that is a little wonky, and it's a minor quibble, it's that Azrael's fully aware that the Magisterium is on their way.
Yes.
And he's like having this somewhat casual and meaningful conversation with his daughter. He even mentions like the Magisterium's on its way. But there doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency. I guess he knows how long it's going to take them to get there, and he'll be up the mountain by the time they get there anyway.
Probably. I mean, you think about it. Lord Azrael is basically a Doc Savage. You know what I mean? Like, he is almost like an Ubermensch. He's stronger than everybody, smarter than everybody. He probably has this little bit of information, and he knows just how long it's going to take.
He's the Ozymandias of this world.
Exactly.
So where do we go from here? What's our next moment? So the Magisterium is on their way. We've had this conversation. Roger's still asleep in the fort.
She's asleep on the little divan.
Yes.
That I'm impressed that they were able to get into the lab. Like, there are some things that I just think about bears carrying into this place, and it makes me so happy. Like, really delightful.
Careful.
Exactly.
Turn.
It's like, was it Ross and what's his name? What do they take? They've taken the couch up the stairs.
Right.
And they had to cut it in a bunch of pieces.
So she's asleep on the divan, and then is the divan is that what I'm thinking of? It's the chase lounge is actually she's on. And then Thorold bursts into the room all frantic, and she wakes up like, what the heck? And he's Lord Azrael's gone, and he's got Roger.
And Thorold is in protect mode, because that's what he's asked him to do, protect protect your my daughter.
Yep.
And he says, well, are you going to say goodbye? It seems like, that should be what you're going to do. And I guess that's really what triggers their conversation is he's like, oh, I guess I should talk to her. Yeah. But he puts him in charge of it. And he has a big old shotgun. Mm-hmm. And the Magisterium arrives with very little pomp and circumstance once Lyra Lyra just leaves before they get there. And
I loved I think you're going to say the same thing. She did the Yorick, I need you.
And he goes.
Yep.
The only thing that would have been better is if he was buried in snow and he just like shook off. That would have been great. But he kind of barrels around the corner and has sort of gotten his squad together.
And it's a heck of a squad. He's got a lot of dudes.
It was a dozen at least.
Yeah.
And they had their like fire things on their back, and they were ready for battle.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You got to think, again, going back to Lord Asriel being a Doc Savage type character. You've got the Magisterium brought, like, all their dudes to get him. Then the bears take, like, a dozen bears with artillery to get, Lord Asriel to stop him from what he's doing. They know. I mean, Lord Asriel has got to be, like, the most formidable person in the world. Yet he still has to go and get funding from the nerds at the college.
Yes, I mean, why did you just do? Honestly, look at the equipment he had on the top of the mountain. It was like, a little chain link fence, little thing. I guess the blade is probably pretty expensive, to get. He's got some like Anbaric things, but none of that stuff seems like very expensive.
No, it didn't.
It's pretty. It looked like stuff he just got at a garage sale.
Basement lab.
So they bolt just before they land, and she's on her way. Thankfully, no weird close-ups of her riding him yet, although there is one later. And Mrs. Coulter enters the lab and encounters Thorold. They have kind of a tete-a-tete.
Yeah, but before she does that, she says something really funny to Frau Pavel. Like, don't touch anything. There might be traps everywhere.
Oh, yes. Right. That's right. He like goes over to touch. It's like he's just going to touch
Kevin
something.
McAllister stuff all over.
Yeah. A paint can of nuts and bolts like falls down the stairs, and some marbles roll across. Yeah, I would watch that.
I would watch
that. So Thorold has his weapon trained on her. She does not. Does she pull out her gun here? We don't see her gun again, do we?
I don't think so.
Or maybe it's referenced later, but she doesn't get it out at this point. She just approaches him and knows that he doesn't have the stones to do it, essentially. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she knows it, and she's not even afraid. She doesn't even take the gun from him. She just walks up to him and then walks behind him. He puts the weapon down, and that's it. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't give up what is happening or where he is. But the nice touch here is this drawing on the window, which we see a few times. That there was a great shot earlier on where it was panning, and you could see the drawing getting closer and closer to the outline of the mountain, and then it continues past it. Reminds me of the Indiana Jones, where the Paramount logo changes into the mountain. I sort of liked how they referenced that. So she really doesn't know what he's up to. She's reading the equations, and she knows that it's just about energy, an energy release. But it doesn't seem like she knows what he's up to.
Well, then she says, "Is this dust?"
Yeah.
So yeah, she knows that this stuff.
Thorold is like, no, Thorold's not saying a word.
Right.
I mean, good on him, right? I mean, you might say he doesn't have the stones to take her down, but he also doesn't. He's silent. She calls him a coward because he won't say it, but he's actually pretty devoted.
Loyal.
He's loyal. He's loyal.
Yeah, and she tries really hard to shake him, and she can't. Like she says, like he treats everybody terribly, even you. Like she's trying to, make him falter somewhere. Well, he'll give up something, and he just doesn't. And he looks at her with this look. I love that look on his face. It was part like confusion. Like he just looked like, what are you? Like he didn't want to hurt her. Mm-hmm. He knew he wasn't going to, but I don't know. Maybe he was like, if I have to, I will.
I feel like there may have been some relationship, like kind relationship, maybe back when she was having her affair with with Lord Asriel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe he did something to help facilitate. Maybe he was like the nurse in Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
Help to facilitate it.
And he's been with Azriel for a long time. And this isn't. Yeah, they were he was definitely around back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
14 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they, she's, she kind of. They decide because she sees in this drawing where she believes that where Azriel is, the top of this mountain, and I guess she boards the Zeppelins and they head up to the mountaintop.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way, they encounter our friends the bears on the ground, and this is like the big scene, the big battle for this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It was not too bad. There was some pretty cool stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
It was on open ground, which was kind of cool.
The bullet tracers,
yes,
the explosions. I liked sort of how they made it. They gave you intimate moments where she was hiding behind the rocks, like covering her ears, and then trying to like move through it and get to other positions, but sort of being overwhelmed by it. And then one bear gets felled, but other bears are like running around with they're like you see them standing up, like stacking those things up. You had to love that. And he, Yorick, his voice is muffled because she's sort of disoriented, and that because there's been so much noise, and he snaps her out of it. And he's like, I'll take you up the mountain.
Yeah.
In the book, I believe she's like, "What about your bears?" He was like, "This is what they were born to play, baby."
They've got this.
Right.
Yeah. Which I kind of would have liked that line in there, but it's okay that it's not. It was in my head canon. I heard it.
Yeah, exactly.
And they had there was a little bit of a weird shot of her riding him with the explosions and the fire behind him, which is like a little bit too close, and she was doing that weird like really close to the camera up and down. But it's okay.
But I kind of accepted that one.
Yeah, it was fine.
Maybe it was just because it was super short, and because there were lots of stuff going on around it.
It was fine.
I liked the crashing of the the fireys.
That was really cool.
Really cool, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
and the soldiers jumping out, the paratroopers jumping out, and
that was
demons flying down.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was killer.
That was phenomenal. I loved it.
Which then is cool because you're thinking that all paratroopers have to have bird demons, right?
Right.
That's pretty slick.
Right.
You come in for an interview and you roll up with a dolphin. They're like, "I'm sorry."
How do you roll up with a dolphin?
It's demon profile. You have like a pool on wheels, and it goes.
Wow.
It's demon profiling. It's like, sorry.
How dare you, sir?
We don't have a place for you here. So Yorick and Lyra continue up the mountain, and then we get maybe it's the scene that we've sort of been like, it's in our head this whole time. We see Roger sort of like, why isn't Lyra coming with us? Where's Lyra? Why isn't Lyra with us? He's like, the world's gonna break. No big deal. I mean, like, he's a little kid, so I guess he buys it. But they're going up this mountain. We know what he's going to do. Roger's somewhat clueless, but I like sort of the interesting aspect of having Stelmaria kind of flanking them a little bit, carefully making sure that they're not going to run, like staying just to the side. That was a nice touch. She's also really encouraging of Azriel, They're one and the same, but there was some good moments where she's like, the Aurora's ready. It's time. She's very she's in this.
But you think about it, maybe Azriel did have doubts. Maybe he did have doubts, and she knew it, and she felt like she needed to encourage him.
Just like Pan, Pan kind of can psych up Lyra in the same way.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. So we get up to the mountain, we see his ragtag bit of equipment up there, and the scene that sort of gets your it surprises you is he grabs Roger. Very unceremoniously, he just grabs him and just throws him in the thing, and Stelmaria grabs his demon and takes him to the other cage.
Yeah.
And obviously we know what's going to happen, but that's kind of like a jarring moment because he's just sort of like checking his instruments. But it's kind of like the book, right? There was like, he's checking his instruments, blah, blah, and then it's like, boom, this is going down.
Well, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, please.
I was super disappointed from the Panzerborn fight on.
Oh.
There were just there were no witches in the fight.
No
and
witches.
that bummed me out. That bummed me out. So that we
There's
have
only
this,
one witch.
Yeah, there's and it's really unfortunate because what it does is it undermines the idea that this is something that's larger and involves every, you know what I mean? Like involves every being.
Yeah.
And it also is they play a huge part also coming up in other things. And so there's zero groundwork for them at all, save one.
So have they cut them out? Are they not going to be in the next season? That's the thing that I wonder.
Right. And so and that worries me a little bit. I'm just not sure, how do you do some of the things that you're supposed to do? Right. How can you do that without it? So that was one thing. Roger, just, I don't know, him walking and it's where's Lyra? She's coming. That was just such a crap shot to me. The power of that scene in the book and in the movie, right, is that he is kicking and screaming the entire way, and Azrael doesn't give a shit.
Well, in the movie, we don't even get it.
No, that's right. That's right. It's not in the movie.
Yeah, in the movie, we just get
in the book,
the happy end.
The happy bye-byes. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the power of that scene. And that's what, it shows this determination, and it shows this, and it was just, I don't know, I didn't, and maybe if somebody hadn't read the book, that would have worked for them and they would have believed or felt okay with that little farce of him to get there. But I don't know, and then him just grabbing him, like you said.
Yeah, it's very jarring. He just he's standing there, just grabs him.
Whereas before, he's not even trying
bound.
to put it.
I think he's bound.
He's just and Roger is coming at him and pulling on him, and in the book he's just pushing him away, you're annoying, get away. There's that much hyper focus on what he's doing and that much disinterest in Roger as a human being anymore.
See, that's what I think happened at the end of that scene versus the entire thing. In the book, what we got was the entire thing of Roger was not a person. Roger hasn't been a person since he saw him on the landing in the lab.
He's a tool.
Right. And then, when we see him working his instruments and not responding to Roger at all, just grabbing him and throwing him in there, that's the point when he disconnects from him. Or at least he realizes he doesn't have to go through the emotions anymore of pretending to care about him. Just grabbed him, threw him in there. He's not a person anymore. He's back to being a tool. And I thought the jarring nature of it was important to the scene, because I thought that was what Roger may have felt as well. He just suddenly grabs him and throws him in this cage. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I as I said, there's enough there with that sort of surprise. Oh, he just grabbed the kid and threw him in the cage. It's it's unceremonious, but it's also kind of it's upsetting because what's about to happen. And he doesn't really get a chance to plead for himself much, because by the time he gets into the device, Azrael, it's this very rudimentary setup he has with this, the blade that he has to sort of manually push down, and it's he didn't have any WD-40, I guess. So he was yanking on that thing and yanking and yanking and yanking. But once he gets to the bottom of it, I thought this was pretty effective. And I know it didn't quite work for you guys, but I thought that there wasn't. It was a tight focus where you sort of see it go through. There's not sort of this. It's very intimate in a painful way, where they're sort of screaming and screaming, and then the blade finally gets through that final piece, and the demon just goes, and there's nothing. There's really, and it's just kind of silence, and everything else starts to happen. It's not they're separated and they're feeling something. You just saw that demon just flatten out, just disappear. Didn't float away. Just went. I thought that was a pretty effective special effect.
And we didn't have to see the child die.
The shot was more on the demon.
Exactly.
Because
like
Roger's in the
thought
foreground.
that's what was key. Was like they didn't force us to watch that.
Yeah.
Which they would have had they stuck with the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think they may have been protecting us, and for certain reasons.
Lyra is climbing and she gets to him right as it happens. This is really almost from her perspective, how she sees it. And she's like blown back. Her and Pan are kind of blown backwards when this happens. So what did you think about the effect of the sort of the gateway opening up?
It was cool.
A little smaller. I think it could have been a little bigger.
We didn't see any of the city.
Only at the very end.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was what was key when we're looking through that portal.
Sort of opens up.
Yeah.
Right, like you see more of the city in the pictogram, like he has in the little, film that he has that he sets on the desk. It's a beautiful picture of it, and then there's pretty much zero of it present.
Yeah, that was too bad. I would like to see more of that. But before we get to them really looking into this, we see it open up, and it's very narrow. It's like it is really like a very small single person opening, which gets bigger as the show continues. But Mrs. Coulter rolls up. Lyra's sort of unconscious at this point, and Mrs. Coulter rolls up, and our demon love moment happens, the one you've been waiting for. No? Oh, you're not waiting for it?
Stroking. Okay. It was
sorry. There was some scent glands at work.
Ew, gosh.
That's so gross.
I don't know. I've been saving that, really. I wanted to say that again.
So gross.
You nasty.
He's trying. So Asriel's really going through that convincing dialogue where he's trying to say, we could do this together.
Yeah.
Mrs. Coulter feigns interest in Lyra here. She's like, Lyra's here in this world. I'm here in this world.
And she wants Lyra more than anything.
Yeah. I mean, really? I didn't buy it. I don't think that Asriel necessarily bought it either.
Well, yeah, when he's like, you want her?
Yeah, really?
Right.
Have you met her?
Like,
She's a real pain. She's a real pain. Goes by the name of Silver Tongue.
If it had been this kid, I'd have thrown her in the cage.
It's a small moment, but they have a moment together there in front of it, and he tries to convince her to come, and that it's bigger than them. He says it's the most important thing. The war is coming, whether we want it or not. This is multiple times he says that in this. He even tells Roger, while he's in the cage, there are casualties. There's a war and there's casualties in war, and I'm sorry. Does he say sorry? I think he does say sorry.
I think he does.
Yeah, his casualties. Sorry that you have to be one of them.
Yeah, sorry it has to happen to you.
Yeah.
Or sorry, like you have to. Yeah.
Yeah. But he has this moment with. He says he doesn't say Marissa. He says he said it differently. Marisa or.
I thought he said Marisa.
Marisa, that's what he was saying. Yeah.
Right? Didn't he say Marisa?
Am I saying it wrong? Because I've been saying Marissa, but is it Marissa?
I always thought it was Marissa, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I've pronounced multiple things wrong at this point from those.
Yeah, but you crushed Chitagaze.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Number one. So she departs from him after a kiss, and deciding to sort of stay in this world. She almost sees Lyra, but Lyra has gotten up and hidden from her. She goes up, and she has a nice scene there she pulls Roger out of the cage, and this is again sort of right out of the book about his skin still being warm, and Pan says it just happened. He's and her going through thinking about what to do. And this is a real Pan moment here with him saying, we could do this. We can go through. We could search for dust. He's giving her confidence to do something that's out of her. It's not even out of her comfort zone because she is an adventurer, but going alone is something that is upsetting to her. And he says, we've always been alone. except for Roger, and then Roger's dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that was the thing. I mean, she at that point had probably, she was done. She'd already said that she did her piece when she was back in the house. I'm sorry, back at the lab, and now she just watched her best friend die.
Mm-hmm.
That's her second friend dying in this whole thing. Part of her was probably done, and that's why she needed Pan to push her forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Really, what was next? Well, I mean, at the end of the day, what was next for her? She's going to go with Mrs. Coulter.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The Bears are way back there. Who knows what's going on with the Bears?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like wading back into a firefight.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
all she can do is move forward.
Yeah, and the moment was undermined a little bit with this cross-cutting with Will to me.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Because it's like, okay, we're back to Will, and he's looking at the cat, and then, she's back here talking to Pan, and then it's Will following the cat, and then Pan is saying we should do this, and then it's back to Will going through the fence and seeing, she's approaching the gate, he's approaching the gate. It lacked that grandeur from the book about her walking into the stars. It doesn't feel like that. You can even see like rocks and cobblestones where she's walking. There's also kind of a weird like when
Hair.
Yeah, and you see her when she's walking towards us, the camera, and you sort of she's inside of it. It's like very 2001 or very sci-fi looking inside of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
But it was undermined a little bit to me with that back and forth and back and forth and back and forth of them going through. So this brings up another problem to me. Lyra was in Chitagaze for like 2 weeks before he shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And here in this story, they're entering exactly the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So who's to say they don't meet immediately, which I think takes away from some of that, she's like, feral. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jinx, she's feral. And he's like, who is this disgusting, filthy creature,
I don't think we're going to get that at all.
I agree, which is too bad because that's, those are the moments where he makes her food and he shows her scrambled eggs and she has a Coke for the first time. And there's all this stuff that he shows her. If she's just Lyra like this, I don't know.
Well, even the scrambled eggs thing undercut with the Egyptians thing with Ma Costa when Ma Costa was going to show her how to cook. Like there was the whole element there where she didn't feel like she was ever going to have to do this, and now we know that was a skill that somebody was going to teach her. They just haven't gotten around to it.
That's right.
My big complaint about this whole series so far is that it diminishes the book. And I shouldn't say it diminishes the book because nothing's going to diminish the book. I'm reading the book. That's what it is. But it's the version of the book of the story that it tells is a lesser one than the version that we've been getting in the book and books. And I hate saying it, but I feel like they're doing the books a disservice.
Is this by combining the two for this narrative? Is that
combining the two and then undercutting a lot of the points with their I think ill-advised need to foreshadow when Pullman didn't, and Pullman's an amazing storyteller. If he didn't feel the need to foreshadow some of these things, I don't feel like they should have felt the need to do it too.
But
because I don't think the things that they've changed were necessarily different in relation to the medium.
But wasn't he like in consultation with them during
he's an
his
executive
production?
Producer. I mean, he's an executive producer.
So
I would assume
he have some knowledge of what they were going to do, and wouldn't he?
It depends on how much they would want him involved because they own the rights. They can do whatever they want.
Or how much he cares to push back. I mean, to him, this might just be, I'm getting checks for this,
Right.
And it's good on it. I mean, he was a producer on the movie too.
He posted about adaptation. He posted about how adaptation works. I think I guess there were some people that might have been not my Lyra people or whatever released the Lyra cut There's I think there was some backlash early on, and he was like, "Hey, adaptation and artistic changes," and it's like people can just like when you read the book, people get different things out of the book, and these people adapting the book are trying to do something in a different way, and they're delivering the story in a way they think is interesting. Little Women, right? 1860 or whatever that book was released. Greta Gerwig makes another Little Women. There's been like 10 Little Women movies. It's like, what is this bringing to the table? So she's adapted it in a new way, and she's getting major props for it. And what she's done is she's telling it in a non-linear narrative. She's moved everything around, but telling the same story out of order. And it's like, people are like, okay, well, you're adapting it, and it's interesting, and it's different. Maybe they felt the need to sort of go away from what we saw in the movie, and bringing Will in, I still think there's merit to that because of going into
that. I agree with that. Yeah.
But the Boreal stuff, while Boreal is an effective character and I've enjoyed seeing him on screen for the most part, him going through, just passing freely and easily between the worlds, which we find out that he is doing in the second book, it's just too soon. Episode 2? Isn't that when he went through? It's so early.
And it's just and like you said, it's so easy for him to do it. I mean, Grumman could have gone back. As easy it is to go back and forth, why couldn't Grumman have found this portal and then gone back to his family?
Sure.
I mean, he was in London for years.
There's one right there.
Yeah. Go. There's your son. He never did it. Again, yeah, whoops. My bad. But then we've got Lord Asriel, and his entire purpose, kills a kid so he can cross worlds. There's one under his nose the whole time.
There's a greenhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, in London.
Weak sauce.
Yeah, that's a little frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, and for a show that has had such great performances by such wonderful actors for 8 episodes, at no point I think have I critiqued anyone's performances, because I thought everyone is fantastic. I think the material and the performances were let down by some of those choices.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, and then I think we've set the stage for a lot of problematic elements for season 2. Just today in this episode, we've talked about a few things that I don't know how they're going to make work.
Yeah,
their simultaneous arrival, Boreal and what he's going to do, and how the effectiveness of him, her seeing him in that museum,
right.
Like, who is this dude that's following me and like trying to be my friend? It's like we've been watching him for 8 episodes already. We know exactly who he is. We know exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
We don't even find out really what he wants until they're in, he's like, I want the knife, bring me the knife. It's like, that's deep into the book, and we've already got the tower with the angels, and he knows everything already. It just feels, I don't know. It's not that it's rushed. It's just, they're not trusting that they're going to get a second season, possibly. They are not confident in the way they're telling the story, and they feel like they need to add additional elements to make it exciting. But in some ways, it's done the opposite. It's like sometimes we're with Will. We had an episode where we wanted to stay with Will, remember? Because that was a good Will episode. And then there's episodes where like, why are we going back? We want to stay with Lyra. And you're talking about diminishing the content. I still have that feeling that Lyra's story was diminished here because she's the focus of the first book.
Yep.
Will's the focus of the second book.
Yeah.
So now it's like we're going into that second book. Lyra never got her season.
Full story. Yeah.
Now we're going to have there's no way to really, unless they bring in Amber Spyglass elements, it just feels like she's going to be a much smaller character in the second season already, just because of the story, the existing story.
And now that you put it that way, it makes me think of the witches thing that Joanna was talking about earlier. And, gosh, I really don't want to introduce this element already, but are we going to see like a diminished role for women in these books? Because I mean, the witches are a huge part in the second book. Mm-hmm. This matriarchal society is a huge part in the second book.
Right.
We've seen one.
Yeah.
One.
And she's seemingly invincible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we've got Lyra in the first book. Her story's been cut in half, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's does not bode well for series 2.
Right. Mm. I remain hopeful.
I'm glad we have the books.
Yeah, I'm glad we have the books. We have the source material,
mm-hmm.
and we just read it, so it's kind of nice.
Yep.
I can't decide whether it's more frustrating to have an intimate knowledge of the source material, or is it frustrating or is it helpful?
Mm-hmm.
You know. All right. Well, it's a late night, guys.
I know. We do not sound optimistic for season 2, but I'm still excited to see it. I want to see what they do with it. I love the second book, and mm-hmm. I want to see Lord Asriel's castle.
Yeah, I think that maybe if they feel confident and the numbers are good, maybe the budget will go up a little bit, and we get to see some epicness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy Hanukkah. Happy holidays. And enjoy. We will be back to book reading. Yeah. In the new year.
We will.
Yes.
What is that? The 5th.
I think so.
Are we gonna do? Well, I guess we don't have to stick to Mondays. We'll have a little more freedom in our recording periods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we'll be back and we'll diving into our namesake, the Amber Spy Glass.
Yeah, we will.
I'm going to say it wrong so many times. I can already prediction right here. I'm going to mess that up a lot. But we'll jump back in the new year. We've appreciated going through this journey with the show with you guys, and I've very much loved seeing your shining faces for 7 episodes. I missed one. So yeah, it's been great. I appreciate you guys. It's funny that we're here at the end of the year. You know, we've been doing this for 6 months.
I know.
That's nuts.
20 some odd episodes.
This is fantastic, though. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And I meant to tell you that the executive producer followed us on Twitter. So
what?
We'll see if she's gonna. I don't know if she's listening, but maybe she'll unfollow us after this episode.
We still want to watch second season. It's okay.
Oh yeah, we're in the bag. We're keeping our subscriptions. Don't worry. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great holiday. Happy New Year, and see you on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye-bye.